In today's video, we're going to continue on with our series of videos where we do a 2017-18 season recap and create the 2018 off-season plans and how these teams should prepare their off-season to be more competitive for next year. Today's video, we have a special guest to discuss the Chicago Blackhawks. And that's coming up next. And welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. As I mentioned off the top, today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have a special guest on. Ryan Mac Hockey's going to come on to help discuss the Chicago Blackhawks 2017-18 season, as well as how they should proceed this offseason to make this team better for next year. Now, before I hand it over to Ryan, I'm just going to give you some quick tidbits here on the 17-18 season, and then we'll get his thoughts on how this team moves forward here. So obviously they didn't have a great season. Chicago Blackhawks finished last in the Central Division. The first time we've seen that in quite some time. They finished with a record of 33, 39, and 10. And obviously there's a lot of things that didn't really go all that well this year. You know, a couple of big points in my opinion that really caused them to not succeed this year was Corey Crawford being injured a lot. Obviously his absence in goal was a significant impact on this team. You know, when you don't have your all-star goalie and Stanley Cup winning goalie in the net for a big chunk of the year, that really has a major impact. And the other guys they had taken up the ice time in the crease just did not cut it and did not get the job done in my opinion. You know, we also saw Brent Seabrook be a healthy scratch this year. Obviously Seabrook didn't have a great season. You got to wonder, you know, what the future holds for him and guys like Duncan Keith. I mean, they've been, you know, tremendous players for this organization for a long time. But I think age is starting to catch up with them a little bit. Their contracts are starting to look not so great. I mean, you could probably argue Brent Seabrook's contract might be the worst in the NHL. You know, he was a much more productive defenseman at one point in time. And I think he can still be quite useful on the back end. But when you look at how long both these guys are signed for and what the amount of money they're getting paid, you know, it's just it's time that they need to inject some youth in the back end. And obviously as things catch up with those guys and the rest of their core players, you know, the cap situation is going to be a little bit more of a troubling situation moving forward. But one thing they will get some more additional relief on moving forward is it was just announced here before the recording of this video that Marian Hossa will not be returning. He's going to be hanging up the skates, so he'll likely spend the rest of his contract on long-term injury reserve for the Blackhawks. I don't believe he's going to officially announce his retirement because there's too many other complications, contract and cap-wise. So he'll remain on LTIR until his contract comes up, which will give them some cap relief moving forward like they had this past season. It's unfortunate. I think they'd rather have Hossa in the lineup producing. Even in his later years, Hossa was still a very productive hockey player. But unfortunately, due to health reasons, he's not going to be able to continue to fulfill the end of that contract. But at least at the same time, they'll get the relief salary cap wise to replace him. Now, a couple of big positives I think for the Hawks this past year with some of their young players. The big thing for the Hawks to move forward, I think, is they need to inject some youth. And the youth they injected this past year really stepped forward. Like Alex DeBrincat, I thought had a tremendous rookie season. He ended up scoring 28 goals. I thought Nick Schmaltz was tremendous as well. I mean, he had put up 21 goals. And then late in the year, we saw the debut of Dylan Sakura. He got into 5 games and put up 3 assists. I think he's got a tremendous future as well. So really, those 3 youngsters up front, I think, are tremendous potential, and I think that the future is bright. When you mix in some other veterans, like Patrick Kane's still going pretty strong. Obviously, Brandon Saad's return after they traded for Panarin for him to return, that didn't really work out. Panarin did quite well in Columbus. Saad didn't do so hot in Chicago. I mean, Patrick Sharp returned, didn't have the greatest year. Thankfully, he was only signed to a 1-year deal, and it looks like he's going to be retiring, so Sharp won't be back next year. But you know, they've often brought guys back, and sometimes it's worked out. But in these cases, in my opinion, it didn't really work the greatest. But however, they do have contract term with Saad here for a while, so they hopefully can help that bounce back between him and Jonathan Toews. Hopefully, they can get that chemistry going again next year. They also have a bunch of UFAs that likely won't be returning. Some of these guys finished the year in the minors, like Cody Franson, Chris DiDomenico, Michael Roosevelt. These are all contracts that likely won't be renewed. Jordan Tutu is another one. So they won't have much of an implication on their cap situation, as a lot of them are buried in the minors anyway. But those are all guys coming off the books that won't be returning. So at least at the very least, they'll have more room to take on more contracts for next year and beyond. They do have some key RFAs that need new deals as well. Hinostroza, Anthony Duclair, Anton Forsberg, as well as another one, and Thomas Jurko. I think there's a pretty decent chance all these guys will be brought back. I do have a question mark around Forsberg. I'm not 100% sure, but really he's still young enough that they very well might continue to work with this guy. The other three guys up front, I think, will all get qualifying offers to remain in the organization, especially Anthony Duclair. I think has a potential to break through. They just need to get him in the right situation and move forward from there. As far as trade bait goes this summer, there's been a lot of speculation around Artem Anisomov. We'll see if he is actually dealt or not. Now, he does have a modified no trade, so trading him is not as simple as it sounds. But of all the guys that you look at their contract situation between Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane and Seabrook Keith, like a lot of these guys are still locked up for a long time at big money, and it would be almost impossible to move. Especially, not only are they locked up for a long time at big money, but they're also pretty well all have no trade clauses of some sort. Some are full, some are partial, but either way, moving any of those core 4 or 5 guys would be very difficult. Anisomov is a possibility where it's a modified no trade, so there are teams that they don't need his consent to trade him to. But at the same time, I think he's also a player that would generate some interest because his cap hit is not as crazy as some of the other guys that we just mentioned there. So I think Anisomov's a possibility to get moved this summer. Not a guarantee by any means. I think there will be interest. Obviously, they decided as well to return next year with Joel Quenneville as coach and Stan Bowman as GM. I was a little bit surprised. I wasn't sure how that would proceed. In my opinion, I think GM Stan Bowman has a lot of contracts on the books that's going to put them in a difficult cap situation. But having Hossa go on LTIR, having a cap increase, having a lot of these other, even though they're not big value contracts, UFAs come off the books, will help. So the salary cap situation in Chicago should improve at least a little bit moving forward. But of course, a lot of their youth players that we just mentioned had breakthrough years are going to need new contracts, extensions here over the next year or two to make sure that they have lots of room in the cap situation over the next 1 or 2 seasons as these contracts come up, so that they can afford to give those guys raises and they're not in a big cap crunch having to move players out again like they have been in the past. Throw it over to Ryan Mack Hockey. He's going to come on and explain his thoughts on the season recap here and how they should move forward for next year. Like I said, you should definitely check out Ryan Mack's channel. I have a link down below in the description. So at the end of this video, go check out his videos, subscribe to his channel. I think you'll enjoy his content. Over to you, Ryan.
Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and first of all, I want to thank Top Shelf Hockey for having me on his channel. Very honored to be on here to talk about my favorite team, the Chicago Blackhawks. So as we all know, this past season, the 2017-2018 season, was horrible for the Chicago Blackhawks. They finished with the record of 33, 39, and 10. I think one of the major reasons they didn't do well this season was because of depth and goaltending. Obviously, we all know Corey Crawford got injured with vertigo, and so he wasn't able to play for the majority of the season. And our backup was Anton Forsberg, who's not a very good goalie. Nothing against Anton Forsberg, but he's just not a starting goaltender, and that is a big reason that the Hawks couldn't get wins. Another reason is their depth. You know, they don't have the best depth. They have their stars, Kane, Toews, Saad, Keith, Seabrook, Crawford. They have their stars. They don't have depth. I mean, you look at teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Capitals, the Jets, even the Golden Knights, and they can play all 4 lines anytime, and they can score, and that's what the Hawks used to be. But this past season, they haven't been. They're losing their depth, and they're just not the same team anymore. So they got to fix that during the off season or for the past upcoming years. Overall, our star players did not have very good seasons. I mean, Kane actually had a decent season. He had 27 goals, 49 assists for 76 points. I mean, he was a minus 20, but most of the team, if not all the team, I think, was a minus. So Toews, on the other hand, did not have a very good regular season. He got a lot of hate this season. He got 20 goals, which is, I mean, I'll take it. 20 goals, pretty good. 32 assists, 52 points. Only a minus 1. So, I mean, he's pretty good compared to, I mean, not good, but like, compared to the rest of the team. He was their best defensive forward, and I still think he gets too much hate for how he played. I still think he's a great player. I'll just quickly run through this, what the core of the Hawks did. Keith had 32 points, minus 29. Seabrook, 26 points, minus 3. Saad, 35 points, minus 10. So the stars for the Hawks obviously are not stepping up, and that just adds more to the problem of the team. In terms of prospects who I think should play next year, I think Sekura, he played a few games, number 95 this season. He should definitely get the chance to play. Obviously, DeBrinket's coming back. Schmaltz, Hinostroza, all those guys are going to be coming back. And I'm very excited to see the young guys come in and play. But I think the Hawks need, more depth and more gritty players. So coming up on the 2018 draft, the Hawks have the 8th overall pick. And personally, I think they should draft Adam Bogquist, defenseman from the SHL. I think the Hawks are in desperate need of a young defenseman. They have, Murphy, I guess he's a young defenseman. I mean, they have a couple guys. Osterley's not young, Ruda's not young. So they need a few guys who are young on the defensive core. So I think Adam Bogquist would be the perfect pick. He's 169 pounds, 5'11" from the SHL, and I think he'd fit in great. So as of the Hawks' lines next year, I think I'm going to tell you the guys who I think should stay, where they should play, and the spots who need to be filled. So I think first line, you got Saad as the left winger, Taves as the center, and then you need to fill in that first line right wing. Second line, Sekura could maybe play on the second line left wing alongside of Schmaltz and Kane. Third line, I could see DeBrincat, Anisomov, Hinostroza. Fourth line, I didn't have anyone in there because I think the Hawks need to totally redo that fourth line, have some grindy players, not young scorers, some grindy players in there who can also put the puck in the net, maybe put, I don't know, a young scorer with 2 grinders, a good defensive forward with a scorer and a grinder, something like that, but I think the Hawks need to totally redo that bottom line. Defensemen, I can see the first line being Keith and Osterley. Seabrook, I think they need someone new to fit in besides Seabrook. And the third line I could see being Murphy and Yad Ruda. Definitely, I could see that. And goaltending, obviously, if Crawford comes back, you'll have Crawford as the starter. And I think the Hawks need a new backup goalie. So that's just kind of my thoughts and stats on the 2017-18 Hawks season. Thank you again, Top Shelf Hockey, for having me on. If you guys haven't heard of me, check out my channel, Ryan Mac Hockey. I do a lot of hockey videos about every team. I try to do every team, not just the Hawks. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Top Shelf Hockey.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Thanks for coming on the channel and giving us your thoughts on the Chicago Blackhawks. Again, if you haven't been already subscribed to Ryan Mac's channel, there's a link down below in the description. Go check him out. You won't be disappointed, especially if you're a Hawks fan. You'll greatly appreciate all the content that he produces. Now, one last thing here before we go. I just want to touch base on the 2018 NHL Draft. Obviously, with the Hawks not having a great season, they do have a fairly high draft pick. They have the number 8th overall pick in this draft. It's a very deep draft, as we've discussed here before. I think the Chicago Blackhawks need to make sure that they target one of the top defensemen available. There's all kinds of strong D available here in the first round. I think where they're picking at number 8, a lot of the top forwards are likely going to already be off the board. I mean, we already know that Rasmus Dahlin's by far the number 1 consensus here to go first. So Buffalo, if they're smart, will take him. And then after that, between picks 2 down to 7, which are in front of the Hawks, you're likely going to see a lot of the top forwards go, like Svechnikov, Zadina, Tkachuk, probably Wahlstrom as well. So those are 4 guys gone, plus Dahlin. So there's 5 picks out of the way. Then you have 6, 7. There's bound to be still a solid defenseman available between Adam Bogquist, Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, Noah Dobson. One of those guys should still be on the board. Either way, there's going to be lots of strong D available. Some of them can step into the NHL right away. Some of them will need a year, maybe 2, before they jump in. Just depends, but either way, they have an opportunity to grab themselves a great defenseman who has a great opportunity to either be a top 2 or top 4, which would be a big help to this franchise for a long time to come. So if you're the Chicago Blackhawks at the draft, you definitely want to be taking one of those great D that are available for sure. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams. There's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, I hope you consider subscribing. Please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to go check out Ryan Mac Hockey as well. You won't be disappointed. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.